presentation tonight, I take it, from the South Piedmont Community College, and you'll be doing that, Dr. Sewell?
That will be me and members of the staff, as if there are any questions or concerns or some information to clarify what I'm saying.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'll get started.
Thanks.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I know this is the startup of a very busy year, and we're very excited to have this opportunity to talk about some of our facilities and funding challenges at South Piedmont. I'd like to start with, well, maybe not.
Go down.
Hey, that works. I was given directions by Jeff. It's either up or down. I've forgotten, the other direction. But our mission is education, training, and community engagement in Anson and Union County. And many of you are aware of the fact that we're a merger of Anson Community College and Union Technical Center in 1981. Our mission is learning, student success, and workforce and community development. And over the last 4 years, we've spent a significant amount of time enhancing our workforce and economic development functions at the college. 13-member board of trustees appointed by the governor, the Board of Education, Board of County Commission. Board of Trustees sets policies, and the college acts on those policies. We're accredited by the Commission of Colleges, SACS. For 10 years. We were affirmed in July 2013 for 10 years. In 2018, we'll receive a 5-year reaffirmation visit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Brief description of our students. They're reflective of the community in terms of where we are. Our current enrollment's 2,500 full-time equivalent students, with approximately 14,000 residents served in Union and Anson County. We're different from the school board in that when you look at our student head count, a full-time equivalent student is the accumulation of 16 credits to a student. So, for example, Dr. Thompson could be a full-time student taking 16 credit hours, and 16 of you could each be taking 1 credit hour. So we serve a combination of individuals and multiple students. So our head counts look kind of interesting. We're reimbursed by the state on FTE, full-time equivalent, but we serve all residents. We do not keep tuition in this state. So when we collect tuition dollars from our students, that money is reverted back to the state and then reimbursed to us a year later, which also creates some interesting funding challenges. We're here tonight primarily to talk about some of our challenges, and in your handout, on page 3, I believe, page 2, if I could ask you to look at that, is some regional growth projections that came from the Prosperity for Greater Charlotte report. And I look at the Charlotte region because Union County specifically, we're talking about Union County funding, serves both Union County and Mecklenburg County in terms of filling that employment and wage pool. Many of our students that are living on the borders will commute into Mecklenburg County. Any of you who've been driving down 74 can see that migration out and that migration back. So although we're trying to support Union County business and industry, we are also supporting the greater Union County and Charlotte region in terms of filling that workforce pool. And that's where our challenges come from. If you look at the right-hand side of the chart, you can see that projections show relatively significant growth between 2012 and 17. This is an older report, and I know that if it's updated, we'll probably see a higher level of employment or prospective employment. But when you look at the types of employment, they're different than what you think of in terms of our community college. You're looking at back office administration support, business support, construction's growing, logistics and transportation is growing. Of course, manufacturing is growing, looking for mechanics, significant growth in the medical industry, personal services, and social services. But across the board, we're seeing growth in all professions. Our enrollment growth has also been fairly large. This chart shows how we've grown since 1999, the creation of the college. And I'll kind of walk through this a little bit. The dotted blue line is our FTE number, full-time equivalent student number. The green line is recommended square footage per student at 100 square feet per student. And I'll talk about that a bit later. And then our red line is our actual square footage, actual amount of educational space that we have available per student. If you turn to, well, I'll just stay here for a while. The 100 square foot per student recommendation is something that comes from a Management of America report, MGT of America report, that the Community College System Office commissioned almost 8 years ago. It's an industry benchmark, an industry standard, but not a state or industry requirement. But typically educational, post-secondary educational spaces look at 100 square feet of assignable space per student. Wanted to talk a little bit about our economic impact and the county investment. Since 1999, Union County has invested $13 million in facilities and land for South Piedmont Community College. And in that time, we've served 167,000 students. 160,000 students translates into 30,000 full-time equivalent students. And again, you look at the numbers, the 167 are the bodies or the people that walk our hallways. The FTE number is how we're reimbursed. So we're reimbursed based on one number, but the people that put wear and tear in our facilities and use our educational spaces are another number. The county investment, as you work your way through this, you can see the schedule of investments the county has made. And the total ROI number, I need to grab this over here. When you look at the alumni impact, societal impact, added taxes, and public sector savings, is more than $244 million, and that's since the beginning of the college. Those numbers for return on investment come from Economic Modeling Specialists International, EMSI, which is a company that the community college system has used to try and come up with a number to explain what you're getting in return for the investment that you're making. Our regional accreditation requirements. SACS, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, core requirement 211.12 is asking us, do we have adequate physical resources to support the mission of the institution and the scope of its program and services? That's both operational and facilities. When somebody comes in to visit us from SACS, and we just went through this visit with a partnership visit for SACS for our automotive program, we're not getting a social sciences professor. We're not getting a history professor to visit our team. When somebody's coming in to look at finance and facilities, you're receiving someone of the caliber of Michelle Brock or of Jeff Yates. They're digging in and they're looking at us, and they're looking at us from a operational perspective. So, and that's one of our concerns. In order for us to receive accreditation or reaffirmation, we need to be in compliance with SACS. We've been very successful over the last few years in developing additional partnerships to leverage facility. We just received SACS accreditation early for our automotive program in partnership with CATA. That partnership will allow us to start an automotive program which will feed back into the local work pool, and will save the college, and I say the college, will save the county $2.5 to $3 million of capital investment. That's my estimate to create an automotive facility, and I've created a couple in my past lives. So we found a way to leverage that. Very unusual for SACS to accredit that. It's a facility that we don't own, we don't control. We're using their faculty member as our adjunct faculty member, but they were very happy with the way that we developed and built the program and the way we were going to control it. And we have other programs that we're doing the same thing. So SACS is one of my biggest concerns, and it's one of my biggest concerns in terms of facility and why we asked to meet with you today. In 2018, we will probably receive another visit because of the number of external partnerships we're developing with SACS. Typically at the 5-year point, you do a written paper review, but we have 3 or actually 4 active partnerships right now regarding facility. And I would expect, given that number of partnerships, they're going to come in and look at our facility. And I'm concerned that they're going to say that our facilities aren't adequate to support our mission. And facilities are a big challenge because of the lead time. If we find that our facilities aren't appropriate, SACS will put us on warning. And warning means a lot of things, and I know of colleges that have been on warning with SACS for many, many years. And I could give you a list of those, but it makes people very uneasy in terms of sending students to a school. When that's reported in the paper, which they always are, people don't read beyond the headline to look at the reasons for the warning. So your community college will appear to be in significant trouble, which it may be in terms of facility, but the assumption is that we're in trouble because of academic academic quality, not because of facility. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Statutes, GS 115D, local financial support of institutions. And I know that some of you are aware of this, but this is a governing statute that supports support of your local community college. And it looks at plant operations and maintenance and the ongoing O&M costs for the facility and the creation of those facilities. And we are challenged right now. I've talked already about the EMSI, not the EMSI, but the MGT of America benchmarks. The 100 square foot of assignable space is an old number. And I've been at this now for 28 years, and that number really hasn't changed. And my guess is that number, when at some point it does get readjusted, will drop down to the 90 or 80 square foot per student number. Total square footage, and we have a lot of square footage, does not equate to assignable square footage. In general, a building will yield about 43% of its gross square footage to assignable square footage. In our case, we're at 50%. We're a bit more efficient than the average. So we're getting a bit more usage than you would expect. If you wouldn't mind turning to page 6 on your presentation, on the handout that I've given you, to talk about this table. The table on page 6 is a table that shows the 23 or 24 community colleges that are single county districts. And the reason I selected those is because the data for multi-county districts becomes so aggregated you can't sort it out to look at square footage per student. Single county districts reported to the system office are much easier to get to, and I know our numbers. Out of that table, you can see the range, a range of square footage out of the 28 counties, which is fairly representative of the system in itself, ranging from 140 square feet of assignable space per student down to South Piedmont at 28 square feet per student. So in comparison to the other community colleges system-wide, we are far short of the space that we should have in order to support our mission. If you could turn to page, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on this, page 9 of your presentation. And page 9 is a fairly convoluted table, and I call it some of my spreadsheet doodling, and we've been looking at this for a while. But it shows our head count, FTE, and then square footage per student from the beginning of South Piedmont to where we were in 2014. And if you look at the chart in the red, and you can see the ebb and flow on that, you can see where we grew in enrollment during the recession, and we've leveled out and flattened it after the recession. At the recession, we grew to approximately 2,300 full-time equivalent students. Since 2009, we've declined about 8.7%. But since 2008, our enrollment is up 10%. So even with the recession, when we went through that big bubble that everybody in the state and the nation went through, although our enrollment has declined a touch, and I say a touch because we've maintained that over the course of the last few years, we're still up 10% from where we were earlier. All right. So going back to the chart on page 9, if you look at the last 3 columns, from the beginning, South Piedmont has been short of space, and you would expect that at the start of the institution. In 1999, we were at the 100 square foot per student level. We were 84,000 square feet short. At 80 square feet per student, we were 60,000 square feet short, and you can look at the numbers at 70. If you go down to 2014, with the recommendation of 100 square feet, we're 148,000 square feet short of what we really should have to support our mission. If you look at 80, we're 105,000 square feet short. Oops, I'll go back this way. Here's my chart. These are the numbers that our creditors are going to look at, because the question is going to come to us, why are you partnering or spreading out as much as you are institutionally? We have a partnership pending with Union County Schools for Culinary. Again, specialized facility, makes a lot of sense to do that. We can share facility and space around evening and weekend programs. We've expanded to WACSA. We have a partnership with St. Matthew's Church that I think we'll be able to stay in for maybe another 3 years before they grow and we have to find another place to go. But it was a way for us to reach out to the western part of the county and find a way to serve that county population. And we have other partnerships that we're exploring, looking at ways to leverage our space. But again, there are always consequences for actions, and one of our consequences for the partnerships at this fifth year review is going to be, why are you doing this? And this question will come to us. We've talked about this. Here today to request that in 2016, this year, that we place a $20 million request in for what used to be called the multi-purpose building, which would be supporting the industry demand that I showed you earlier in this presentation. That building would create about approximately 75,000 square feet additional, would not completely satisfy our facilities needs, but would go a significant way in terms of dealing with those issues. If the county decided to put that on a bond, and if the voters approve that, we still wouldn't have students in the building until 2018, given construction levels. So we're construction timeline, so we'll be dealing with that issue when we get to our regional accreditation. We've found, or we've been very creative in finding ways to bring members of the community on board. The Alliance for Children has a learning lab and lending library that's on our campus, but it's also part of our instructional space. It's a great place for our early childhood students to participate with the community and parents and children. When I approved lending library, I thought books, and when they came over, they had these big plastic things, which took up a lot of space. But it made a lot of sense to do this. But we don't have space to do many things that we do. The early college consumes about 5,000 square feet in Building A. And that's a very valuable partnership for us because it's bringing students through the door, saving Union County residents a significant amount of money, because those in this state, that education is free while they're high school students, and helps us with our FTE numbers. But as they grow, and they could grow more, we keep planning more and more portables alongside the building. We have reached our limits on space. CTHE building, Center for Technology and Health Education, we've gone through 3 renovations. We've invested about $4.5 million of the county's money so far. $3.5 million that you approved for us for purchase initially. Out of that 3.5, we spent $2.8 million on the purchase of the building. The balance went into the phase 1 renovation. When the county appropriated an additional $1.5 million for facilities and equipment, we built a welding lab and additional classroom space. But we also shifted some of our classroom spaces around and asked the city county economic development group to move into that building. Why? I've wanted to do something like that for 20 years, but it is the icing on the cake for Chris Platte. When somebody asks, what's this county's commission to workforce and economic development, he can take them for a walk in the building and show them. And I think Chris has probably told all of you that individually. And what you've done with your funding is built a impressive world-class facility. It's needs a little bit more money, and we're in the middle of doing that. I think I'll ask Dr. Bird to stand up just for a second and talk about our capital campaign for equipment.
In April of last year, we started a capital campaign. We kicked off with a 5K on campus in Monroe. The campaign was for $600,000, and that is for equipment for programs. We had the 5K kickoff in Monroe, but we also had a kickoff in September that was in Anson County. We do something in Union County. We try to do something similar or equal in Anson County. We had a golf tournament. That golf tournament raised over $11,000. The 5K raised over $8,000. We had an event at the Treehouse Vineyard, and that was where our board members, our foundation board members, invited people that they knew who might be interested in the college, and we raised $25,000 at that event. We had a similar event in Anson County where we raised $20,000. We are currently at $317,000 of the $600,000, and that's with 9 months in right now. So we are working to get that $600,000 raised. We, thanks to Mr. Simpson, he invited me to speak at Rotary in Waxhaw, and it was a great opportunity because little did I know one of the gentlemen in the audience, he listened to what we had needs for at the college, and he called me. I was on my way to Rotary in Anson County, and when I got back, he had left me a voicemail. And Mr. DeMund said he would like to give $50,000 for one of the robots that we needed for the capital campaign. And he did that within the next 2 weeks, and we now have the robot ordered, which will help us with our robotics program at CTHE. So we are working hard to raise money. Currently, the foundation is at about $2.9 million, and a lot of that is endowed for scholarships. We gave out over 40 scholarships in the fall this past year, and we'll do the same again in the spring, and for program endowments.
Thank you, Dr. Bird. So anywhere we can, we've built partnerships, we've leveraged partnerships, and we've found ways to stretch a dollar as far as we possibly can, but we are out of space. And my concern right now is as we look at space, because it's such a long lead time item, when we move to our next accreditation visit, the college will potentially be placed on warning. And we don't know what the consequences of that will be. But none of those have ever been good. So the second part of my presentation is fairly quick, which comes down to operational funding. In Union County, and I'll quickly go through this, and I have charts up on the wall. Our facilities and operational funding, and I looked at pulled this together a different way, which is per capita by county. And that is not sitting in your presentation. It's sitting on the wall in here. Looks at how do you find and measure that standard across the entire state to look at how we stand respective to the other county in our service area and how we stand relative to our peers? The range is from about $50 per capita down to $0. Some of those counties that are funded at $0 are what I call the counties in the Society of the Great Dismal Swamp. The College of the Albemarle has many counties and a lot of swampland and very few people. So their funding agreements are a bit different. I'll go back a step here. If you look at funding by county and per capita, I'll point out two red lines. The red line at the very end is $8.20. That's a Union County funding rate per capita for operations. The next red line over is Anson County's funding rate, which is approximately $20. And the yellow lines are sister colleges within the region. Stanley, Rockingham, Montgomery, and of course Mecklenburg. And Mecklenburg is almost a special case when you look at how well funded they are from a tax perspective. So relative to our peer institutions, and we're in a very competitive area in terms of attracting and keeping students, and the state, we're funded at a very low rate in operational funding per year. What does that do for us? It has us defer ongoing, you could say, back office maintenance. A couple of years ago, we received $1.75 million. We were able to make a significant change in our server maintenance and upgrade some servers that were obsolete. We couldn't get parts for them. 30% of our students now participate online, which is a number that I think is too high, but if you don't have square footage for them to attend, they'll tend to participate online. So we're dealing with that issue, and we're trying to find a way to attract them in. 100% of our students have an online presence because it's the easiest way to reach them. So every class has a student log in and attend an attendance mechanism and a first assignment. So we're very heavily dependent upon that. I'm running into a problem, as you are, in terms of IT professionals. My turnover in my information technology department this year is over 30%, and I'm certain that Cindy has experienced something very similar to that. Our rate of pay, state salaries, don't come anywhere close to what we need in order to keep those highly skilled professionals. So we're training them and sending them on. The last person that left us doubled their salary. We need to find some funding for out of the operational budget to supplement salaries for our IT professionals. Otherwise, I'm going to continually turn over people and lose a step every time I have to train. We need to do some things with our library and services. We should bump out the library in Building A to create more space. During a busy cycle, and our busiest times of the day are between 10 and 2 in the afternoon, the library is loud, crowded, and noisy. And we do promote the noisy piece because we have students and faculty interacting, but it's crowded. There is not enough room to serve the students that we have with the library spaces that we own. And I could go on with an endless list, which we'll provide to the county manager's office as we put our budget together to look at what we need for operational funding. But I'm also requesting that the county consider in this budget cycle a $500,000 increase in our ongoing operational budget. So the final piece of this is this chart on the wall up here on the large easel in front, which instead of breaking it out by county is looking at service area funding by community college. Out of the 58 community colleges in North Carolina, South Piedmont is funded at the rate of about $8.20 per capita across the 2 combined service areas. The system average is slightly over $20, and out of the 58, we are funded the least out of the 58. So I'm standing in front of you with 1 foot here and 1 foot out the door. You all know that I'm leaving. but my obligation is this college and this community, and this community does amazing things. And I'm asking the county commission to do one more amazing thing and invest in itself and invest in its community college. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Question. Your 100 square foot per student per FTE,
Yes, sir.
what does the impact of your interaction with UCPS affect on that FTE and that square footage?
It's negligible because the difference in the number is so big. I'll start with the early college, and I'll go back a step. Here we go. This is the initial building that the college received. This is the creation of Building B, the nursing building. This line right here is the space that we gave up to the early college for the on-campus space that we needed. So it's we've given up about 5,000 square feet in Building A. A significant amount of their growth has been in the portables outside of the building. And we have a constant ongoing battle with the early college. I shouldn't say battle, but again, anywhere we have open space, everybody's vying to find that open space within the building. So that's been negligible. In terms of the partnerships, if you look at the automotive facility, I think, and I'm going from memory, and it may be a bit fuzzy, but I think we ended up with about 15,000 square feet of space that's dedicated sole purpose for automotive. And again, that would make an impact, but I wouldn't come out in good conscience and request that the county commission fund the creation of a culinary program and an automotive program when we already have a very good partnership with Union County Schools. We can use those spaces in evenings and weekends and find ways to transition students from their programs to ours. So between the two, we're probably looking at between 30 and 40,000 square feet of dedicated specialized space. But I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at general classroom space. I need to improve and increase our computer lab capability. We don't have the labs and equipment to support the software and programming that we need to support. We need to improve and increase our business labs. We need to be creating more accountants, more people that are managing backroom logistics, shipping, receiving, all those other pieces of the business that work within this county and the region.
Stan, one thing that might be helpful for the board, it's been about almost a year since we saw kind of your capital plan and the dollars associated with each of those components. Mm-hmm. Do you have something with you that shows those pieces?
I do. At the end of this presentation,
okay,
in the appendices, we've broken it out in order. In priority, including the backup data for EMSI and all the other pieces. I will, matter of fact, let's go to that. And let's start with page 11, supporting data, charts, and tables. And this is the base information where I picked up a lot of the state data. This is coming from the state community college system. These aren't numbers that we whipped up here. The next one, table 1, shows the instructional square footage utilization analysis. Looking at, and some of those charts are here in a more abbreviated form. But Cindy, I think what you're asking for starts on page 13.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And they did see it, but like I say, it's been
Yes.
just
It's
about
been a
a year
while.
ago. We talked about capital improvements
Yeah,
overall, so.
The multi-purpose building, and I like the CTHE, and I'll make Laura cringe, the beer hall, are names that have to go away. And in good conscience, again, we can't come to the county commission and say we need a multi-purpose building. We're not looking for a Swiss Army knife. We're looking for a building to support STEM technologies and business. And that's what you could say the multi-purpose building used to be, but that's what we're asking for today. Sir?
So you have in Waxhaw, what do you have going on there? You said you had a building there that you were using currently.
Yes. We're partnering, St. Matthew's Church built an educational, or actually an annex out in Waxhaw. We've been partnering with them to do workforce development training, short-term training. They would prefer that we not expand to classes or degree programs because I think they're concerned if we start that, you can't get out. And it's a valid concern. Once you start a degree level program out there, you have to teach it out, which could take 2 years to make it go away. And they've been growing pretty dramatically out there. But our usage out there has grown very, very quickly. We're doing some computer training, we're doing go-to-work type training, resume writing. Dan, could you speak to that?
Also, yes, Dr. Peter, also real estate programs also.
Okay.
But again, it's the continuing where they're looking for the short-term program to turn these people into work for the workforce. So that's kind of the charter they have given us for the next year or two.
One thing that was on my mind is, Waxhaw's been interested in having a library in that area for quite some time. I'm looking at your 75,000 square foot building and what it would have, a bookstore, space for student activities, cafeteria. Is there a possibility of incorporating a library into that and using it as a kind of a joint activity, something where that we could have?
Prior to the elections, I had spoken to a number of people in Waxhaw, and I've not gone back since November, but there's a lot of interest in a joint or shared use facility.
So if you built this building, is this building absolutely necessary to be built on your land that you currently have, or could it be done somewhere else?
I think this building is necessary to build on the space that we have here to support the students that we already have. When you look at the chart that showed our square footage shortfall, I'm shoehorning them in one way or the other. Waxhaw represents a college growth opportunity. We have not tapped that part of our service area in any significant and strategic fashion, and the partnership with St. Matthew's Church allows us to start building those programs.
So Dr. Seville, was my math correct? Is it 41 million of capital that you've identified here?
It's 41 million for everything that's on the list. At this point, we're requesting that we be placed in a bond for 20 million for the business technologies and STEM building, and consideration in this next budget year to increase our operational budget by $500,000.
And what's the thought behind doing 20 million right now?
20 million right now allows, we couldn't digest 40 million all at once. Although I'd love to hear the county and the residents say, yes, let's put $40 million into the college. But what I've laid out for you is a long-term spending plan that looks at 20 million initially, and once we're into the middle of that, we need to look at a renovation of Building A. Building A is wearing out. That renovation was good for what we've gotten out of it. We put very, very little money into that, but it is, and we've gotten a lot out of that building, so we need to renovate that. That's in this list also, I think, is our second priority. The third priority is a retrofit of Building B, to fully convert that into a nursing and healthcare building. So what you have in front of you shows a staging of a series of requests over anywhere from 5 to 10 years, but it gives you a logical plan to invest in the community college.
Any other questions?
How many additional square feet do you have in your capital plan total?
I would be well, actually, 75,000 square feet is the additional square footage in the capital plan, because the Building A and Building B renovations don't generate significant additional square footage. Building A, again, that big bank building needs to be gutted and retrofitted, but we won't see significant additional space from that. B will look at conversion. Some of the offices and administrative spaces will convert into educational space.
Any idea how much? It looks like you have, what, 36,000 feet available there, roughly?
About, yes,
How much
36,
is
I
that
think it's
convert?
36,000 gross. And again, we're looking at utilization right around 50% for assignable educational space.
Okay. So you're looking at roughly 90,000 square feet additional in those two buildings, 75,000 square foot building and the renovations to building B.
No, because we're using those two buildings now. Building A and Building B are already in full use. So what we have budgeted in for those are renovations, not new.
Okay.
The only new space right now is a 75,000 square feet out of the business technology and STEM building.
Any more questions from the board? Thank you for your presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
That's that's what you call A business? New building?
Yes.
Okay, so you got A and A. I think that may be what. Am I right there?
Building A, Building B. I just wondered if something happened. My copy is a little bit different than yours.
I don't know what they're called.
Okay, attachment one
Okay,
is steps.
In discussions with council here, well, we have food available.
Hold on a minute.
I have a question for you, Dr. Steele.
Yes, sir.
In going through, just looking at the numbers on a 75,000 square foot building, it comes out to about a construction build-out cost of $262 a square foot, which seems high. Is there anything in there that would drive that cost up? And does that include any land or?
No, we already own the land, and that's construction and outfitting. I'm assuming about, or expecting about $1 million to outfit.
Okay. Still puts you well over, I think, $200, well over $200 a square foot.
I would have to get back with you on that on numbers, because this is the building that was spec approved and embedded to the county commission back in, Bill, if you could help me, when did we originally bring this to the county commission?
I'm not sure of that date. I know that you were first, pretty much new on board, first
Yeah.
meeting probably.
Well, this was before that, because
Yeah.
Dr. McKay had brought this to the county commission, so we would probably have to update those numbers for you. But again, our estimate is right around $20 million to bring that in.
Do you think it'd be higher then?
I don't anticipate that it would be higher. We'll have to find a way to bring that in. The other thing, and I'm not trying to change the subject, but the other thing that may help us with this is the Connect NC bond. Again, that's going to the statewide ballot in the primaries this March. That bond would generate approximately $3.1 million for South Piedmont Community College. Of that $3.1 million, $1 million of that has to go to Anson County because it's a Tier 1 county. So we would have about $2 million to work with, which could act as a discount against that $20 million. The county match requirement, because Union County is a more prosperous county, is I think it's a 3-to-1 match. So to get to the $2 million, you'd have to generate that match. Anson County is not in that position.
Well, the reason I ask is that with a budget of 19.7, if I take down and look at just the construction cost, we're at $235 a square foot. Which still seems high, given that the land is already included.
Right.
If that number comes down, then maybe there's other opportunities for some of the other construction costs. So if you would look at that and see if that number is still valid,
Okay.
or what would be driving that up.
Okay, what we'll do is I'll call for recess until 6:05. That should give us time to get our food and come back in, and we can continue discussions while we eat or, brainstorm, whatever we need to do. But, so I'll, motion for recess until 6:05. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we entertain a motion to recess to 6:05.
So moved.
The motion is second. Okay. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
College Board of Trustees.
And I'll call the South Piedmont Community College Trustees back to order from our recess meeting.
All right, this is a good time for discussion, I guess, between the two boards, or if anybody else had any questions, did your members have any questions or thoughts, concerns?
Okay, I don't know. Anybody from the South Piedmont Community College Board of Trustees have any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to speak at this time. And I'll just start it off by saying that we do thank the Union County Commissioners for meeting with us and hearing the overview of our needs, and we're sure that you all recognize the importance of community college to the community. And I know that you all will do everything you can to meet those needs, just because of that importance. Anyone else?
I would also like to thank the commissioners for allowing the trustees to meet with you and to share the needs of the community college. I think the commissioners recognize what the community college means to Union County and to Anson County. And you need to be knowledgeable of what's going on there, and ask some excellent questions and questions that should be answered. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. I think it's a great step in the right direction.
You know, I might also add that Dr. Sador said he is leaving, so he's committed on that. But we do have an interim, which Joyce Long was going to take over for a month, and she's been there for quite a while. But Dr. Jerry McGee has agreed to do it for up to a year while we find the search, where we do the searching for a new president. So, you know, that's not going to be easy to find the right guy, because Dr. Sador has done a very good, detailed job here. And we appreciate the work he has done. But we're going to have to go, find the right person to replace him. And I think Dr. McGee will be a good replacement on the interim.
Well, one of the things you've heard, I'd just like to mention, I'd like to echo the thanks for you all agreeing to meet with this board. But one of the things I think that we all, I know, but at the same time I think it's important to reiterate, is the importance of the community college for workforce development in our county. You all have heard, I know, Chris Platay and speak many times about the value of the college, and I know that we had a conversation not too long ago that Stan presented some information to the Economic Development Board, and it was very apparent that those business leaders who sit on that board of advisors saw the value of the college to their businesses. And so it's just great that we can have this opportunity to talk and communicate with each other about the college in general. So, thank you.
I'd like to ask, what are the thoughts, we talk about 20 million or 40 million is what you actually need, but in your opinion, and in the opinion of your board members, what would be, if we were going to put up for a vote of the people, would we go ahead and ask for the 40 million or ask for 20 million?
You know, I think we do that. We need to look really hard and make sure we have our numbers right to go and have a guideline to show what the timetable would be to do that. Of course, we're spending the money. like you said, when you get money, sometimes, you might not spend it wisely, which I don't think that would happen. But we just have to make sure we have it planned properly, I think.
I guess then the more appropriate question is, do you put the referendum out there for half the project right now and then have to go back, or do you put it out there with the correct figures for the total amount and put it in a holding account and use it as needed versus keep having to go back and forth?
Well, no, I think you're right. In fact, you do need to do that, but we need to have it planned out so people
Right,
understand, how the money would be spent and when it would be, when it's projected to be spent. Then we'd be okay.
Yeah, I think the key is gonna be having good numbers, and I'm thinking for this kind of money, one time, because, if you put it out there for a huge amount, like $20 million, and then a few years later, which it may be 5, maybe 10, but people don't forget that. So I think your first shot is your best shot.
I tend to agree.
And right now is a good time to be raising money. The markets are still good. A few years from now, who knows? Everybody would be at risk at that point to a project really only being half done. And if times change such that it was a poor time to go to market, you could be left standing with only half of the goal accomplished.
And the interest rate right now is very timely.
Dr. Sador, you very appropriately pointed out that you couldn't spend it all at one time. What kind of time frame would you see that you would utilize these funds?
First 20 million you would consume within the first 3 years, and at the end point of year 2, you would probably move into the second project if you were looking at a $40 million project, because you could use the same contractor and lay down. We can't afford to give up any space for construction right now. The worst thing that could happen to us, and I'm saying this in front of the county commission, is that you gave us funding to renovate building A, because I don't have anywhere to put those students. So we need to create some additional space, which is a creation of that STEM and business building. Use that to absorb the building when we renovate building A and building B, and try and use the same contractor for the laydowns. So at the 24-month point, you're probably ready to start for the second project, and 18 to 24 months after that for the third.
How have your discussions been going with the Union County Public Schools? We've been talking about partnering as much as we could on things. It looks like you're doing good with the situation at Cata, Parkwood. Any other opportunities there? Any other conversations going on about utilization of space?
So we have Cata, Parkwood. We actually have shared use in their performing arts program also. We have a MOA for that. So we have 3 partnerships with specialized spaces at Union County Public Schools. There's been some discussion about a larger, what they're calling a Tier 2 STEM school that we'd discuss potentially. It's more what-if type discussion about co-locating that on our campus. But we've not gotten any further down the road in terms of really fleshing that out, because in order to make that work, you have to start digging into the program. And how do you actually deliver the programming in a way that makes sense and saves money, rather than having a facility that has one program during the day and the other in the evening. Our specialized spaces work well for that. The non-specialized spaces don't work that well for that, from my experience in another state.
Are there any opportunities to do something with math or English, those type of programs that you may be doing in your school now, where you could incorporate maybe a teacher from the community college into the classrooms in Union County Public Schools? Are you doing that?
Joyce, could you speak to that?
Would you repeat your question?
Maybe utilize the McKibben report came out in December, and he reported that there was a lot of space in Western Union County schools, especially the high schools, Cuthbertson, Marvin Ridge, Weddington. Is there any opportunities to do some of the classwork at those schools? And I know you don't want to bring a lot of the adults there, but are there classes that you do, English, math, that maybe they could have gotten in high school, they didn't? Is there something there with even in the evening classes?
We have not explored that portion of use with those high schools, but we do have career and college promise agreements with those schools, and that is definitely something that we can look at in the future.
And if they moved early college back to one of the schools, would that be how many students are in early college?
Approximately 350 with the potential of moving that up to 500. The problem, though, in moving career and college promise to other schools is that it's a departure from the original new schools agreement, which was to put an early college on a college campus to help students with that social transition. So they may lose some secondary funding that they could be receiving in terms of doing that.
But the career and college promise is not part of the early college. That's entirely separate. Early college is taught on our campus, but the career and college promise is taught in the individual high schools.
So moving that early college back to a school would not affect any funding. Is that accurate? No, it's not accurate?
I'm not certain what Union County Public Schools receives from new schools to run the early college, because I believe I know there was some funding, and it may not be there anymore, but our MOU has that college on our campus because of the social transition. And that's one of the primary reasons that we're locating it on the campus.
Do you receive funding for that?
Do we? No, we do not. Our partnership with Union County Schools has us receiving and educating students, and then they provide some facilities maintenance gratis in terms of their usage in the building and some network support for their network. But we're not receiving any additional funding other than FTE, full-time equivalent funding from the state. So that FTE funding totals about $1 million a year for us.
And that, the early college is partially funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well. That's an initiative throughout the state of North Carolina.
And SPCC gets that money?
I don't think that it comes to us.
No.
I think it goes to the early college itself.
So it goes to the Union County Public Schools.
Right.
So if the McKibben report showed hundreds of empty seats in some of those schools, 200 or 300 empty seats in some of those schools. So if it gave you the space, if it would free up space, would that help you, especially with even doing these transitions or modifications there? Is that something that just don't want to duplicate too much effort?
Right.
And if we've got a lot of empty classrooms in the county, which is what the McKibben report showed and said would continue. Matter of fact, I think the word he used was Union County is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. And as fast as you pour water in, you're not going to fill it up. So with that being said, we have a lot of schools right over in that area that, if early college was located at Cuthbertson or another school, I would think that would be something that could be an opportunity maybe for you to discuss this to get space.
I think it'd be a matter of having a discussion with the Gates Foundation regarding their funding contribution for the early colleges. But from a graduation perspective and a transition perspective, the experience and research is showing us that the sooner we move students into a college track, the more likely they are to graduate both from a 2-year and a 4-year institution. And our students that come out of the early college primarily transfer to 4-year institutions and are more successful than their peers at the same grade level.
Are you having to provide the mobile units, or is Union County Public Schools?
No, those are provided by the school district, and the utilities for those are supplied for and paid by the district.
Any other questions for me? If there's no further thing from your board, I think I would thank y'all for coming. I think this has been very enlightening, very informative for me, and appreciate y'all participating.
Well, Chairman Rushing, I had a question then. My understanding of the conversation is, I believe, though you've not asked the question, that the Board of County Commissioners is asking us to come back with a much cleaner cost and timeline estimate. Am I correct in that?
That's your, everybody's understanding, Steve?
And when would you like that?
As soon as possible, since we're starting to do our budget projections at this point in time, and we'll be starting work sessions with our board next month.
Okay. All right, so we'll get started on that, and I can make that commitment on Michelle Brock. Thank you very much. On the other hand, though, and I joke about that, but I have flexibility where I'm going to be able to participate and help in this transition. So although I'm somewhere else on February 1st, I have some time budgeted to come in and help as Michelle or Joyce or Dr. believe that they need my assistance or insight. So I don't plan on disappearing unless I'm told to disappear.
And I would say this too, since you're getting the information together, is, you know, we all need to think about what is Plan B. If the bonds fail, then where do we go from there? And that is a possibility. So we need to be thinking about, if the bonds fail, what are we going to do to stop this warning list? And you don't want to, that's somewhere you don't want to be. You know, we're depending on the voters of Union County to say yes or no, and you know, we may not like the answer. So think about alternatives and think of how you would handle it if the bond was rejected.
As you're putting your numbers together, the only other thing I would ask is if you look at the timeline of the numbers, what it would be with the $20 million bond and the timeline with the $40 million bond, how that would change, and if one didn't pass, if we broke it up into two, what would you do beyond that first bond?
Okay. All right, we will do that. And one more moment. I wanted to thank the Board of County Commissioners for your time and patience and help over the last 5 years. I've had the opportunity to visit with some of you many times. Some of your viewers you've transitioned in, and I've found that you've all been incredibly dedicated to the welfare of Union County. Although we may have disagreed about some of the things that I'm trying to get down here and have tried, at the bottom of your hearts, I know you're trying to do the best that you can with the resources you have, and personally, I wanted to say thank you.
Would you like to adjourn yours first? Adjourn?
Yes, I can do that, and once again, just like to thank you all for the opportunity to meet with you, and appreciate all the support that you've given us and that you'll give us in the future, and look forward to continuing working with you, and that we'll have more of these meetings. So this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn. The laughter, that's the only function I have in this.
But it's an important one, Chuck.
Okay, get a second?
Second, do it.
All right. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Also, entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.